to all of you, and I'm here to talk about algebra of games. So, can you hear it? Can everyone hear? So, I'm here to talk about algebra of games. We all love to play combinatorial games. We all love to analyze, think logically, and strategize. But what is more interesting is to analyze the underlying algebraic structure in any game. So that is what makes it more interesting. We can analyze any game algebraically, and the beautiful structure inside it is what makes the math in it more challenging. So I would like to start with the classic and the most extensively analyzed, I think, the NIM game. So, as we all know, NIM game consists of you have some n piles and you have certain number of counters in each pile, and you have two players. It's a turn-based game. So a move consists of choosing a pile and removing as many counters as you like from that particular pile. So this is the NIM game, and it's a bipartisan game. The available moves for both the players are the same. It's perfect information game. So that is the NIM game, and by Bouton's theorem in 1902, the game of NIM has been completely analyzed. So given an initial configuration, you can always say who is going to win depending on the configuration. So how do you analyze a configuration? Let's say we have a NIM game which has this initial configuration. What this means is we have n piles, and each pile has ai number of counters in it. So what we do to analyze this game, we take binary representation of each ai, then I XOR it, A1 XOR A2 up to an. Now I consider this value. If this value is 0, if this value is a binary string which is all zeros, then I say that this is an even configuration. Otherwise, for any other configuration, this is even, and for any other configuration, this is odd. So what Bouton's theorem says, that when it is an even configuration, the player who got the game into even configuration has a winning strategy. So the previous player has a winning strategy, so you say this is a P position. Whereas when it is an odd configuration, the player who will play now, the player whose turn it is now, the next player, he has a winning strategy, so we call it M position. So we can look at it this way, that whenever it is an even configuration, whatever move you make will always force the configuration to be odd, and whenever it is an odd configuration, you can always make a move that takes it into the even configuration. So in a way, given any initial configuration, you can analyze it and say whether it is a P position and N position. So the game of NIM has been completely analyzed, and what makes NIM so interesting is that all the initial configuration or all the set of games of NIM form a group structure. So it follows all group properties. Under the operation of XOR, it is a group structure, so it has an identity element. Identity element can be just a set of n piles, each having 0 elements. This is my identity element. I have inverse. As the operation is XOR, each game is its own inverse, because anything XORed with itself gives you the 0 element. And closure, obviously any two NIM games can be combined to form another NIM game, and it's associative. So what makes NIM so interesting is the underlying group structure in the NIM game. So that is about NIM, but NIM has much more impact than just itself. So this is more evident when we see theory, which is the Sprague-Grundy theory, which will imply how what we do, given any game, we represent it as a directed graph. So my set of vertices is the set of all possible positions in the game, and I have an edge between, say, x and y. If from position x I have a move such that I can go to position y, then I have an edge from x to y. So using this, we represent any game as a graph, and we have the game graph with us. So now what we define is something called followers of x. Given any graph, for each vertex x, we define a set called the followers of x, which is nothing but all y such that xy belong to the edge set of the graph. So basically, f of x is all the edges which are adjacent to it. So in game theoretic notion, it means that this is the set of all positions where you can go from x, from where you can make a move and go from x. So that is f of x. So when we've defined all this, let us define what is called the Sprague-Grundy function. So given a vertex in the graph, the Sprague-Grundy function of that vertex is the minimum positive integer such that g of y is not equal to n for all y belonging to f of x. What this means is that I take x, I find the Sprague-Grundy function values of all its followers, and I take the minimum number which does not occur among all these function values, and I assign it to x. So that is my Sprague-Grundy function value of x. For example, let's take a game which has a graph representation like this. Let's say in this, any terminal node always gets the value 0 because you can't go to any other position. So for example, this vertex, or rather this position, is a terminal position. You can't go anywhere, so you assign it 0. Now consider this vertex. In its followers, 0 is occurring, so the minimum value not occurring among its followers is 1. Consider this, 0 and 1 is occurring, so the minimum value not occurring is 2. For this again, both these, 2 is occurring, so minimum value not occurring is 0. And similarly here, 0 and 2 is occurring, so minimum value not occurring is 1. So in this way we can find the Sprague-Grundy function values in each graph. These are also called NIM values. So the Sprague-Grundy function is also sometimes called the max function because we are taking the minimum excluded, because we see which all values are included and we take the minimum of the excluding values. So it is also called the max. So in this way we can represent any graph and find its NIM values or the Sprague-Grundy values. Now why is this so useful? This is useful because when we add games, okay, what do we mean by adding games? If we have games G1, G2 up to Gn, let us consider a game which we say is the addition of all of these games. So what I mean is that a move in my game will consist of a legal move in any of the sub games without affecting the remaining games. So if I want to make a move in G, I make any move in some sub game, say Gi, without affecting any of the sub games. So that is how I define addition of games. And of course, if I represent it as a graph, its vertex set will be the Cartesian product of the vertex set of all these games. So that is how I can form the graph of this game itself. So now, using this analysis in the addition of games is what is the Sprague-Grundy theorem. So the Sprague-Grundy theorem says that when I have a game which is addition of some finite number of games, the Sprague-Grundy function of the new game is nothing but the XOR of the individual Sprague-Grundy functions of all the subgames. So this is the Sprague-Grundy function of G. It is nothing but the XOR of all the subgames. So this is the Sprague-Grundy theorem, and abstractly or intuitively it says that any bipartisan two-person perfect information game can be analyzed like a NIM game. So that is what it means, and it is extremely powerful tool to analyze bipartisan game. So for example, if I have a game graph, and from position P, suppose I can go to some positions P1, P2, P3. Okay, so this is part of my graph. I am at position P, and from here I can make moves and go to either P1, P2 or P3. And in the graph their corresponding NIM values are say x1, x2, x3. So my game from position P is equivalent to a NIM game with initial configuration x1, x2, x3. So this is how powerful this is. Given any position, I can calculate the equivalent NIM game, and then I can analyze it using this. So in short, I can, given any initial configuration, given any addition of games, I can just analyze it and tell you whether it's a P position or N position. So that is the Sprague-Grundy theory, and it focuses on the underlying group structure, and it's obviously an extremely powerful tool to analyze games. But where it lacks is the partisan games. So what happens when we come to partisan games?
Actually, over into the space.
Yeah. No, I'll leave this middle version. So as we saw, the Sprague-Grundy theory is extremely powerful to analyze all bipartisan games. But what about partisan games? Can we have some other algebraic structure which would help us analyze partisan games, or a wider variety of games at least? So fortunately such a structure exists, and it is the monoid structure. So what is a monoid? Monoid is a set M with a binary operation which satisfies closure. So given A, B in M, A operate, B also belongs to M, then it's associative and it has an identity element. So these are the properties of a monoid. So actually it's nothing but a group structure without the inverse property. So that is a monoid structure. So what we can do, given any game A, we define set A as the set of all positions in the game. So this forms a monoid structure. We'll see how. So A is the set of all positions, and it is a monoid structure, and it is in fact a free abelian monoid. So what do we mean by a free monoid? Free monoid is consists of finite length strings where the operation is concatenation of strings. So, and the identity element is just a finite set of finite length zero string. So I'll give you an example, it will be more clear then. So a set of all positions forms a free abelian monoid. Abelian is commutative. So we have A, and here what we are interested is, given a position, I should be able to map it to its outcome. So for example, in bipartisan games, my outcome set is P or N, whether a given position is a P position or N position. So what I'm interested is, given A, I should be able to map it to P or N. So this is called my outcome function, which maps the set of all positions to the set of outcomes. So I'm interested in this xi function, but it turns out,
The thing is, what we were talking about as outcomes earlier
yeah,
was simply who is winning.
Hmm.
Right? Here, what we are talking about, P and N means that the previous player in P has a winning strategy.
yeah,
And so, since these are determined games, from every position one of the two players is going to win. So that determines the outcome. So you know, and the player is going to win. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about payoffs, etc. Determines, so you just label every position as who is winning. So we can simply turn all outcome analysis into saying, this is the guy who's winning. And that's how you want to solve the game. So the chi function will give you the solution, right?
yeah. So like as we previously saw in group structure, we analyze it like which player wins or which player in the end wins or whatever. But here in the monoid analysis, we are interested in the position only. Like given a position, whether the previous player has a winning strategy or the player will play now has a winning strategy. So that is why we define the outcome function. So it turns out that most of the times we cannot directly find this outcome function. So what we do is we define a refinement on A. Now what do we mean by a refinement? A refinement is a function f from A to B, which is a homomorphism. Homomorphism means it preserves the monoid structure of A. Like given x, y belonging to A, f of x plus y is equal to f of x plus f of y. So what we wish to design f in such a way that it is a homomorphism, so that it will preserve the monoid structure of A, and from B there's another function phi which maps directly to the set of outcomes. So basically we have xi which maps A from U, A to U, and whenever it is not possible to find xi directly, we wish to factor xi into two other functions, f and phi, and for that we wish to design a new set B. So f, as the name suggests, it literally refines refines the positions that are available in A. Okay, so f and xi satisfy this property that whenever f of x is equal to f of y, that implies that xi of x is equal to xi of y. So what this means, that whenever f values of two positions are same, they map to the same outcome. So we are basically grouping together all the positions which give us the same outcome. So we are not interested in individual positions, we are interested in their outcomes, as I said previously. So f does the job of refining or sifting all positions. It groups together all the positions which give the same outcome, and then the phi function is a simplified function which can directly map the elements from B to the outcomes. For example, any monoid structure will always have a refinement in terms of game theory. So we can define an equivalence class. Let's say x, a position x is equivalent to position y if they give the same outcome. Okay, so for example, x will be equivalent to y if both are p positions, and if they will be equivalent if both are n positions. So I can define f as the function which maps the given position to its equivalence class. So what I am doing, I am grouping together all the functions which map to p position, all the positions which map to n position. So my B set will consist only of the equivalence classes, and then I map directly that equivalence class to the outcome. So that is the way B should be designed, and you'll see how powerful this is when I do an example. So let us get comfortable with the monoid analysis. let's analyze the nim game in the monoid setting. So for nim, I define my monoid. It's a free monoid, so a finite length string where each bit corresponds to the size of the pile. So for example, A will be a set like this, A1, A2 up to AN, where all AIs belong to the natural number. So this element corresponds to the nim game this, where you have n piles, each having AI number of counters. So this is the way I represent my nim game. So this is my monoid. It has identity element 0, 0, 0. This is the identity element. It satisfies closure because I can add two games, say I1, I2 up to IN and J1 up to some JM, let's say. And this will be again another game. So it satisfies closure, it has identity, it is associative, and it is commutative. So this forms a monoid structure. So now I am interested in finding a set B which filters out or refines all my games or all my positions. So we can use the Bouton's law again to get B. So B can be just set B can be obtained by taking the binary representation of all AIs and XORing it. So the set B is basically the set of all binary strings of length n. So we can say B is the Cartesian product of Z2 n times. So this is n times. So B is just this. B consists of all binary strings of length n. So now my f function will be simply f of a1 up to an. This I define as a1 XORed up to an. So this is my f function, and my phi function which maps from B to outcomes. Outcomes is obviously P and N. So my phi function from B to U will be defined this way. Phi of B is equal to P if B is equal to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and it will be N otherwise. So as we saw, this is an even configuration. If this XOR value gives an even configuration, it's a P position, and if it's anything else, it's an odd configuration, so it's an N position. So in B, we have filtered out all the positions. So here we can say that odd positions and even positions are our equivalence classes. So in B, we have mapped all the positions in as even or odd, and from B, we directly map it to the outcome depending on whether the binary string is odd or even, whether it is zeros or anything else. So in this way we can analyze the nim game using the monoid structure. So as we did not have a direct xi function in case of nim game, so we factored it as phi, and we factored it as the function f and then phi. So this is the nim game. So I'll take one more example, another variation of nim which we can do. So actually this all remains the same. So what we can do, this is called the Moore's nim. This is a variation of nim. So in this game, instead of affecting just one pile, you can affect some k minus 1 piles. Suppose Moore's nim with a parameter k means that in any position you can affect k minus 1 piles. Okay. So what you can do, you can choose k minus 1 piles and remove as many counters as you like from those k-1 files. Also, you can add certain number of counters if necessary to those k-1 files. So the two main rules are that you can affect at the most k-1 files at any time, and in any move the total number of counters should always decrease. So that is the Moore's NIM game. Now if we play for k equals 2, it is the normal NIM game, because k equals 2 means you can affect only one file at a time. So we end up with the normal NIM game. So here again my monoid structure is the same actually, up to an. So my monoid structure is the same. Then now my B structure will be a bit different. Here, whenever we have the NIM game, we analyze all the strings modulo 2. XOR is nothing but addition modulo 2. So in Moore's NIM analysis, what we do is we analyze modulo k. So given any game, we take binary representation of all AIs, we XOR it. So this is actually the function. F from A to B is defined as f of a1 up to an is to take the binary strings, XOR it, and take it modulo k. Instead of modulo 2, you take it modulo k, because we have k files. So you XOR it and take it modulo k. And so my B set is nothing but zk up to zk. So it is a Cartesian product of zk n times. So this is my f function, and actually my phi function remains the same, because if it's 0 modulo k, it is again a p position. Any move that I make will make it an odd configuration in terms of modulo k. And again, given an odd configuration, I can make it to even. So when it is modulo k, if we want to make a configuration even given odd, sometimes it is necessary to add certain number of files. That is why in Moore's NIM we have an additional set of moves available in which we can add certain number of counters. So that is there to ensure that given a n position, I can always make it to a p position. So my phi function remains the same, and my f function is a bit different. So again, I have factored the xi function into a refinement, and I map the outcomes from the set p. So now I think we are comfortable with the monoid notation in all games. So now let us come to the main advantage of using monoid approach. As I said initially, that monoid approach came up because we could not analyze bipartisan games in the classical algebraic group setting. So let us consider a partisan game which we can analyze using the monoid structure. So this is a game called Hackenbush. It is also called Hackenbush strings. So what it has n piles. Each pile has blue or red counters. Okay, so I have piles, blue, red, something like this, blue, red, and I have such piles. Okay, so I have bichromatic piles of blue colored and red colored counters. I have two players, blue and red. Okay, so a move consists of, for a player blue, say, the move consists of taking a blue counter from any of the piles and removing all the counters above it. So for example, a blue player can take this counter and remove this whole pile above it, or he can even take this counter and remove the entire pile. So even if there are red counters above it, it doesn't matter. The player can take away all the counters above that counter. So red can similarly take out a red counter. Now before that I'll do a theorem or a representation which Burlkamp theorem says that you can map such a pile, such a bichromatic pile, to a rational number of the form a upon 2 to the power k. A rational number which has 2 to the power k in its denominator. So this is the set Q2, which is my set B actually. In my monoid setting, this will form my set B. So my set A or the heap monoids I define as the set of all possible configurations of piles with blue and red counters, that is my set A. My set B is the set of all rational numbers which have 2 to the power k in their denominator. So now Burlkamp gave a representation or a way of mapping a given k to a number of this kind. So how do you do it? Suppose I have a pile, okay.
So what is A then?
Huh?
What is
K? K is any positive integer. A upon 2 to the power k. K is any positive integer. So suppose I have a pile like this. Red, blue. Let's say this is my pile. And so Burlkamp gave a way of calculating the value of this pile. So what he does is start from below till you reach a change of color. Okay. So I reach a change of color here. So these two I take as a decimal point. This are 3, so I take it as 3. And here I expand it in terms of binary representation. Like red is 0, blue is 1, red is 0, blue is 1. And at the end I always add an additional 1. So the representation of this is something like 3.01011. So what it means is this fractional part I can calculate as 0 into half, then 1 into 1/4 plus 0 into 1 by 8 plus 1 into 1 by 16 plus 1 by 32. So this will add up to something like 8 plus 2 plus 1, 11 by 32. So 3 into 11 by 32. This is the value of this string, which is equal to 107. 107 by 32. So this is the value of this string. And what we do is this value, it is blue. So whenever it is blue, it is positive. Whenever it is red, it's negative. So here, if instead of blue it was red, it would have been -3. So that is how we map, and we get the value of this particular pile. So the value of the whole game will be just the addition of values of each pile. So in this way we can map the set of all games to numbers of this kind. So this is the Burlkamp's rule of representing. There's actually a more intuitive and easier way to calculate this 107 by 32. What we can do is we associate a weight to each counter. Okay. So how is this weight calculated? If a counter has all the counters below it of the same color, its weight is 1. So for example, this counter has all the counters below it blue, so its weight is 1. For any other counter, the weight is half of the counter below it. So for example, this counter, it does not have all red counters below it, so its weight is half into 1, so its weight is half. Here its weight is half into half, so this weight is 1/4. And you assign a plus sign to the weights of blue counters and minus to the weight of red counters. So that is how you can calculate this. So this will become 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 4 then this is half, so 4 minus half minus 1/4 plus 1 by 8 minus 1 by 16 plus 1 by 32. So you can check, this will also come to be this 107 by 32. So this is a more intuitive way of calculating the weights of the piles and just mapping it to this. So now we come to our phi function, which maps the set of maps all the numbers of this kind to the outcome. Now let Z belong to Q2. So my phi, I can define my phi as this. Phi of Z is equal to blue if Z is greater than 0, and it is equal to red if Z is less than 0. Now I'll justify this, but intuitively what it means is that if this value is positive, it means the weightage of blue is more in the game. So the blue player always has an advantage, we can say. So it will always turn out that the blue player can play in such a way that he will win. And if it's negative, then it somehow means that the red counters are more, or the red counters are placed in a more nice way. So the red player always has a strategy to win. So
Empty pile is not allowed.
huh?
The empty pile is not allowed.
Empty pile.
That
Empty
is
pile
zero.
as if Z is 0, what happens is the player who is not to play immediately, he will win. Because what happens, suppose Z is 0, then the player who plays now will either make it greater than 0 or less than 0, and the next player can play accordingly. So the player not to move has a winning strategy when it is Z is equal to 0. So that is phi of Z. So let us analyze this a bit more. What I mean is, suppose I have a chromatic pile. Okay, I have a chromatic pile of blues, let's say. Then the red player obviously has no moves. Now what the blue player can do, blue player can remove any of the counters, and any move that he makes will decrease the weight of the pile. Because the blue counter, if in a monochromatic pile, the blue counter, each counter has weight 1. So whenever he removes the piles, the weight of this whole pile decreases. Whereas if I have a monochromatic red pile, then obviously the blue player has no moves, but whenever the red player removes a red counter, the weight of the pile increases, because the weight of this is -1 for each. So whenever I remove one of the red counters, the weight of the pile actually increases. So this is for monochromatic piles, and if we have a bichromatic pile like this, I claim that blue can always make a move so that the value of the pile decreases by 1 to the power 2 raised to k, where the weight of the pile is some a power 2 raised to k. And red can always make a move such that it can increase the weight of the pile by a to the power 2 raised to k. Now why is this true? See, the weight of this counter is 1 by 32. Weight of this is -1 by 60. Okay. So, given this pile, suppose blue can always make a move and remove this counter. So the weight of this whole pile decreases by 1 by 32. And red can make a move so as to remove both these. So my whole weight has reduced by this. So actually the weight has increased by 1 by 32. So you can check for any bichromatic pile, this is always true. Blue can always make a move to decrease the weight by 1 by 2 raised to k, and red can increase it. So now we are in a position to analyze this better. So given an initial configuration which is positive, any move that blue will make will at the most make the weight of the whole pile non-negative, and any move that red makes will make it positive. So given a positive configuration, whatever moves the player makes, the configuration will always remain positive, will always remain in the favor of blue. So that is how, if it is positive, it always ends up in a blue configuration, or it always ends up as a win for the blue player, and when it's negative, it ends up as a win for the red player. So this is how we can analyze partisan games as well. So in the end, to summarize, I would just like to compare the classical approach which we did in Sprague-Grundy theory and the monoid approach. What happens is, in the classical structure we talk more about games, addition of games, then which player wins and those kind of things. But in the monoid approach, we are interested in positions. We consider the game as a set of available positions and we split it into positions and analyze it. So that is the main difference between the monoid approach and group approach. And another main thing is the equivalence classes. The monoid approach inherently comes up with its equivalence classes. The set B and the function f is defined to map positions to their equivalence classes. So whereas in the classical approach, the equivalence classes come as a consequence. So we define that a game G is equivalent to H if for any other game Z, G plus Z has the same outcome as H plus Z. So that comes as a consequence in the classical theory, whereas in monoid theory it forms as the basis of definition. And of course, by monoid approach we have analyzed a partisan game. So we can just say monoid approach helps us to analyze a larger variety of games. So that's it, and I suggest if you are interested, you can read a paper by Johann Westlund, which is called The Strange Algebra of Games. So it is a very nice paper which explains all these things, and that's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Could you explain why there is a monoid homomorphism?
Monoid
This representation.
in Hackenfish.
Yeah.
So
Given any position, you are giving this value.
Yeah.
Calculated. Right?
yeah,
So why is that homomorphism?
homomorphism as in basically it is preserving the structure of A. So A is the basic monoid is defined as nothing but the set of all piles, set of all games which have bichromatic piles. So F is actually we calculate the Verklamp strings of each pile and sum its value. So actually what we can do is, given any number of this form, okay, something like say minus 4.101, okay, given any string in this, we can construct a pile of this kind from this. So minus 4.101, what will it represent? It will represent minus 4. So 4 red counter. Then point represents a change of color. So it will be again red, blue. Then 1 represents blue. Then 0 represents red. And 1 represents blue. So this number corresponds to this pile. So we can map it the other way as well. So given a number in Q2, you can find the corresponding corresponding pile in A. So I think that is why it is a homomorphism, that we can map it both ways. Given a pile, we can find its representation, and given any number in Q2, we can also find the corresponding pile. So I think, and we can add it also, and like we can add 2 plus 2.01 for example, and the whatever value we get, that will be corresponding to 2 piles of these configurations. So I think it will satisfy this.
Star.
Huh.
What is the operation?
Monoid operation. Okay, operation I think is nothing but addition. So like if I have this pile, I calculate its value and I add it to the Berglamp value of this value.
No, that's the image of it. Word operation itself is simply composition of subunits.
Composition of subunits. Yeah.
Adding a module.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there was a paper by Eric Damon in which he claimed that Tetris is hard even to approximate. Then there was a paper by Ron Regular, some people, okay, who simplified this paper and they gave the title as Tetris is hard made easy. Okay, what basically they did was they reduced the problem. Okay, they showed that Tetris is basically NP complete, starting with an initial configuration. How is it that it has disappeared? It came till the login screen at least, right?
We go for your password.
So, I'll just give you a little. Wouldn't really help, but
You can pass the laptop around.
in the Soviet Union from 1984, and it became a really popular game recently. And there are only 4. I mean, the pieces are defined on 4. Basically, they are 4-element polynomials, and tetraminos basically. So you have only 4 of these 1+1 blocks, and you construct these elements using these. So the game rules are simple. You have got this initial some board game in which pieces will keep falling, and you have to maximize your score by clearing the maximum number of rows possible. Okay, so you have this classical. Everybody must have seen it. You have this extra piece information which keeps showing over here, which piece is going to come next, and then based on that you just arrange the pieces and try to maximize the rows which you can take out of this thing. So, but in this version, the thing is that you know only the next piece. Okay, what you want to do is, suppose in order to pose it as a puzzle, what we do is that we make an offline version of it. That is, we know the sequence of the pieces beforehand. Okay. So the problem would reduce to a puzzle now. That given, okay, the problem which we are solving is a little different in the sense that the initial board game is not empty. In the sense it would have initial pieces beforehand, and we would have a certain sequence of pieces. But you can make an offline version, as in that given an empty starting board and you're given certain pieces in a certain sequence which you have to arrange, and you want to maximize the number of rows cleared. Okay, so it's a simple packing problem. That is, given these shapes, you have to arrange them using operations of rotations, translations. That is it. Okay. So the problem which we would be worrying about would be basically the problem which would be worrying about the complexity. Yeah. That is, we would be given an initial board game, and we would want to, and given a sequence of pieces, we want to make sure that all the pieces are like cleared. That is, I I can clear all of them. That is the last piece that would fall. It is going to clear my board. So this is the problem we are going to. We are actually. Yeah, I'll show it. That is, it would be defined by the problem which I am trying to. I'll be reducing 3 partition problem to Tetris.
That is very well. I want to know how the input is given to this problem.
Oh, the input would be, let's say, they've given some initial pieces which were already there on the board. Okay, and then you would be.
Where are they on the board?
Okay. Let's say this is the board. Then let's say there were some pieces already lying on the board. Let's say.
So can you touch the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say this was the initial board. Okay.
Yeah.
Then
How do you represent this?
how do I represent this? Okay. It can be done in polynomial time, but okay, I can generate this board definitely. What I can do is I can I can give the rotation number of a piece from the initial piece and just tell you the x location where it is going to fall. Oh, yeah, let's call it the x location. So I can generate the whole piece using this information.
0 to n.
Yeah, 0 to n. These are the cells, and this information would be like sufficient to generate the board. That is, so I give 2 numbers: the rotation from the initial position and what is the minimum x cell. Okay, so we would be worrying about not the maximum clear maximum rows cleared, but about the fact that we are going to clear whole of the board.
Input sequence is not found.
The input sequence. Yeah, input.
Yes, one sequence was given.
The input sequence would be, I would be telling you the pieces which I am going to get. So pieces would be like, the input sequence would look like, given it, okay, this would be the initial board, and then input sequence would be, let's say I give you this piece first, and then I would say, okay, let's say I'm going to give you this piece first, second. So it would be like this piece.
I also told the direction in this sheet.
No, I don't need to tell the direction. I can translate it. I mean, in the original game also, these pieces just keep falling. So the input sequence is just like this. That these pieces are just falling, and I'm making use of this space which is above over here. And then I can translate it and rotate it. Okay, so the problem which we are going to reduce into Tetris is the 3 partition problem. Which says that given a sequence A of 3s integers, I mean there are 3s number of integers, and each of these is in the range t by 2 to t by 4 to t by 2. I want to partition them into sets such that the sum of, okay, first of all there is another property that sigma of all these numbers is s into t. I want to partition them into subsets Okay, I'm going to partition them into subsets such that the sum of each subset is S. So basically I would be having these subsets Bs such that the sum of each of the elements basically let's say A, J belonging to Bi belonging to J. Is equal to B. So B's subsets B's are disjoint subsets, and their union is simply A, and sum of each of these subsets in itself is T. Okay, so one thing which we can note right now is this, that the size of each of the subsets is exactly 3. How? Let's say we take only 2 elements, okay, then the sum would be less than T. If I take the 3 elements, then it would lie between 3 by 4 and 3 by 2, which is fine. But if I take 4 elements, then the sum would be greater than T. So it has to have exactly 3 elements. So this is the problem. And I'm going to call an A comma T a yes instance if it can be partitioned into such subsets. Okay. So this is a yes instance that it can be. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to reduce every yes instance into a configuration in which the board can actually be cleared completely. That was the problem statement. And if it is a no instance, that is the part elements cannot be partitioned into such subsets, summing up till T in each of these subsets, then it's a no instance. That is okay. Then I want, for this no instance, I don't want the board to get cleared in any possible way. Then I've basically reduced this problem, and I would have shown, since this problem itself is NP complete. Okay, this problem is like given in Gary and Johnson, which is a handbook for NP complete problems. So okay, so how do we proceed?
So that will show that the responsibility is NP hard.
NP complete. Okay, yeah. First of all, I'll show that NP problem is in NP. So how is it in NP? I just give you a sequence of. Basically, I need to tell you that it has a polynomial size certificate. So there is this certain placing of pieces so that it is going to clear my board completely. Then it is in NP. Okay, so how do I do that? I just okay. I'll just show it with respect to the initial board I have. So that way, we would be just telling it which bucket it goes into. We would be defining the buckets accordingly, and then it would be easier. Okay, so this is the initial board. So how does it look like? Okay, is this visible? No. Okay, what it looks like is this. this pattern is going to get repeated after 3. So basically it is like this kind of structure occurs 3 times, t plus 3 times. Okay, this structure. These are called as the notches. Okay, and then there are like s of these buckets. Okay, and I'm calling each of these a bucket. Okay, and there are total s of these. I wanted s partitions, basically s sets b1 till bs. So I have s of these buckets, and then finally I have another area which I called the fill area, which is of so first of all this thing is of height t plus 5t plus 80, and there is this area in which I actually have something like this thing is going to get repeated till over here. Is this visible at all? Okay, so it's like these are the buckets. This is one of the buckets which I made, and there are total s of these, and which are going to act like the subsets b1 till bs. And then I have this lock area, and then there is a fill area. Okay, so if I define a sequence of pieces which are going to fill these buckets first, I will not be able to clear the code unless and until I fill this lock area with a triangular piece, this kind of piece. Okay. So this piece I would be giving it almost at the end of the sequence after I have given all the numbers, and then I would be clearing this whole board using this, filling this fill area using 4x1 Tetris piece. Okay, then these are the things. So how do I do this thing? Okay, so first of all, to show that to reduce my sequence A into a sequence of pieces. Okay, so what we do is that we first, for each AI in A, I first give it this piece. Okay. Then I would repeat this sequence AI times. It's okay, square, then this piece. And then I would be ending this sequence using two more pieces. And so this is for each of these AIs. So I'll take in the sequence for each of these numbers. I'll begin the starting. I read a number, I give this piece, I throw in this piece into the initial board. Then whatever the value of AI was, I throw these pieces. I repeat these pieces those many number of times. And then finally I just throw in these two pieces and then read the next number. Okay. So what it is going to do, Okay, first of all, how is it in NP? After I have thrown in these pieces, I'll just tell them, okay, which bucket they're going into. And if they fill the board completely, then I mean, it actually tells you that this certificate is valid.
Sorry, you're missing. To show it's NP hard,
Yeah,
you start with an instance of the three partition problem,
Yeah.
and generate the instance of the Tetris problem, which
Yeah.
you are doing now. That's
Yeah.
fine. That will you complete the reduction. That will show that it's NP hard.
Yeah.
Let's take it that the problem is in NP separately, because
Okay.
this representation is
Yeah,
only
this
for
is
reduction.
only for NP art. Okay.
Reduction.
Okay,
So
that
don't
I'll-
mix the certificate with this.
Okay, okay, that I'll take later.
Yeah, this is separate.
So, okay. So we start reading this sequence.
Yeah.
We throw in this piece, we repeat it AI times, then throw this piece. Okay. And then after that, we have another set of pieces. Called the subset fillers, okay, which are simply this. And then there is this lock piece. Just simply this piece. Okay, and then I have 5t plus 16 4 cross 1 pieces. So the reduction of the problem is this, that I would be filling these buckets with the pieces that I'm going to get. So this is my initial board, and I would try to fill it with these sequence of pieces, and then I would throw in those pieces, throw in the lock piece, and then try to clear board basically with 4 cross 1 tetrahedron. So how is it going to work? Okay. So let's say that it was a yes instance, that is, we were able to partition the numbers into these subsets, V1 till Vs. So there are rest of these subsets, and so let's treat them like buckets. Okay, that is, there is a bucket of size t, and I want to fill it completely using certain numbers. Okay, so these are the buckets whose height is 5t plus 18. This is arising because of, for each unit we would be filling 5 times 5 units over here. So factor over comes because of that. So how do we begin? We take this piece, where can all these fit? Okay, we can fill it only in a bucket. So we take this piece, we would fill it over here. So how is it going to look like? So I get this bigger piece, I fill it over here. Then I take this square piece, I put it over here. Okay. Sorry, this piece is missing. And then I put this piece. And then I put a square. And I am back again where I started. Like, in the sense, I'll reach the next notch. This is a notch. So I'll keep on filling it this way. And then when I have done this thing, I can take this square piece, put it over here, and put a 4 cross 1 piece. I'll just darken it. Okay. So this I filled. I'm filling last 2 pieces of it. So then I put this 4 cross 1. And then there is a notch over here. Basically, we would be getting back the initial position. like this after I have filled in one number. Okay, so after I filled in the last pieces, I would get this configuration exactly as it was in other buckets. Okay, so I can keep on throwing numbers, and if there is a yes instance, what I do is that I treat them like buckets and fill in all these numbers. Okay, so take these numbers, fill them in the bucket, and then finally using this subset filler, I would be just closing each of the subset buckets on the top, and then after that I throw in my lock piece. Since it was a yes instance, I would have like ensured that all of these, basically all my pieces are filled and all the subset buckets are closed, and then I put in this lock piece which would take off these two rows, and then I'll just throw in these 5 into t plus 16 4 plus 1 tetrominoes and clear the board completely. So okay, then there's a calculation for showing that we are exactly filling 5t plus 18 height. Okay, that you can do it. So I'll just skip it away. So then I just want to show what the no instance would look like. Okay, this is like all the pieces which I explained. In the end, it is going to look like this, which is exactly as what we began with. So all the buckets would look like same. Okay. Now the no instance. So for a yes instance, that is, it was possible to do it. We are able to clear the board completely. For the no instance, first of all, notice that the volume of the pieces which I am going to fill is simply ST. I mean, talking in terms of the subsets, which the sequence A which we began with. Okay. So the pieces which are going to get, I would be able to fill a board of, I mean, saying that way, it is S into T. The volume is fixed basically. It doesn't matter if it is like a no instance or a yes instance, but the volume of pieces is always fixed. Okay, so the thing is, if I'm not able to fill in the buckets completely, then some pieces are going to stick out somewhere, and so if there is a piece sticking out somewhere, I know that there would be a place where, if I have a piece sticking out somewhere, apart from the height of the board which I had 5t plus 18, then I would need to clear those many pieces. That is, I would be clearing 5 into t plus 18 plus something rows, which is not possible for me because the volume of all the pieces which I am giving is same, which is sufficient only to clear 5. Yeah. So if it was a no instance, that is, I wasn't able to partition them, then I wouldn't be able to clear the board. Some pieces would be sticking out, and I would need to clear more rows, 5 into t plus 18. Okay. All this, and after that, there's another thing that no piece. I would be sending this lock piece after I've sent in my sequence, all of the A's. So also notice that none of the pieces which we have used till now, all these they cannot be used to open the lock beforehand or anything. I mean, because how is this thing? If I can try to fill it with some of the pieces, but they're going to stick out if I don't use this triangular piece. Okay. And then I again know that if I have pieces sticking out, then I can never clear the board. So, once again.
So how many triangular pieces will you send? How is
One.
that? Only one.
Yeah. Which is only to clear the log space, and then I just end up clearing. I ensure that I'm going to clear the board only after my buckets are filled, not before that. Okay. That's it. Okay, one one more thing, that suppose there was a space, like if I place a piece and in these buckets, and there is a space, that is I don't pack it very efficiently. That is, I do some cheating and leave some space unfilled. Okay. That is, this remains empty and every other place is like filled. Now, since the volume is constant, some part would be sticking out somewhere, and I again would not be able to clear the board. So what it would suffice is that that a no instance can never be cleared is this, that I cannot cheat and cut the sequence somewhere in between and try to place it in a different bucket. Okay, if I can show that for every such possibility, I will never be able to clear the board. What I am showing is that if I try to do this, that is cut the sequence somewhere and place it somewhere else, then I would be leaving some places unfilled. Pieces are selected such a way that you would always end up leaving some empty space somewhere. Okay, so this is the lemma set. Okay, in which this will say that if I try to place some piece somewhere, okay, that is I threw in half the piece, place this thing probably in the right bucket, but then I try to place the rest of the pieces in some other bucket. The claim is this, that if it was possible, then you have to place whole of this sequence for each AI. I mean, for a given AI, you have to place it in a single bucket where you place the begin piece. Okay, so if you place the begin piece in some bucket, then you have to place the rest of the pieces in that bucket only. You can't see it because you would be leaving empty spaces. Okay, this is like, it shows all the configurations. That is, if you place the middle piece somewhere, then you would be like you begin piece you place in some other bucket, and then you start cheating and say that maybe I can place my square piece somewhere else. So this shows all the configurations. They evaluate all of them. That is, this piece is there, right? So we would be leaving out some spaces. Okay. So if we know that if we leave out some space somewhere, then there would be parts sticking out above 5 into t plus 18, and the board would not be cleared now. Okay, then also the value should be placed exactly in the way it is described. That is, you start placing it like only in the way it is given. That is, if you get a begin piece, you have to place it over here. Okay, or here if you have already filled a value. Okay, and you have to place this square piece only over here. You can't really shift it over here or somewhere else. So you have to you can't really make sure of rotation or translation. In fact, since it is a 2x1 kind of a bucket, you can't really rotate your pieces or anything. You have to just rotate it beforehand and then push it down. So that restricts your movement too much, and you can see that this one. Anywhere else apart from what was told. So, and then you would be leaving out spaces over here. So for the middle pieces, it shows all the configurations, and then for the end pieces, that is. So what finally the conclusion is this: that given pieces, you can't really cheat them to put in different buckets. And if it is a no instance, you will not be able to clear the board at all. You have to be able to divide them into subsets such that sum of each of them is t. And if it was a no instance, then basically you know for sure that there would be pieces sticking out of 5 into t plus 18 height, and you would not be able to clear the board. Okay. So this shows that this problem is like each instance is reducible to Tetris, 3 partition. So since 3 partition was NP complete, so this problem is NP hard. We have shown this. Okay. Now to show that this problem Tetris, this instance is also in NP, we just need a certificate which tells you that okay, we can clear this board or not. So a certificate which simply consists of telling you which piece to place in which bucket. Okay. That should be enough.
Why no? You don't have a T here. You see that's the problem. Why is it a polysize?
T. I can know the T, right? I can just.
The T comes from the instance of the partition problem. Now all you are given is an instance of the Tetris problem. Right? That means you are given an initial board and a sequence.
Okay, I can.
And now you have to say whether it can be tiled or not.
I can sum up the sequence. I know where when this thing comes, and this thing gets repeated AI number of
It's an
times.
arbitrary sequence given. You don't have control. Right? The input of the problem is the initial board and the sequence, and I have to produce a polysize certificate. It's polynomial in the size of the sequence, I presume. The length of the sequence.
The certificate which basically clears, okay, would be I would be just telling it, okay, take this sequence. Okay, actually these are like markers. Given a sequence, I would just divide them into AIs. I would try to extract information about what AIs they were actually.
Yeah, it's good.
See.
I don't see what is this AI business. See, that's in the instance of the partition problem.
Yeah.
Now to show that this problem is an NP, there is no partition. Or are you trying to give a reverse direction?
No, I'm going to give it in the way that what basically I'll do is I'll extract information about AIs using the given sequence.
So sir, are you trying to give a reduction to the other direction also?
Yeah.
That's fine.
In the sense that, yeah, given a sequence, I can reduce it to the other.
Okay.
So
That's
what I
fine.
do is that I extract information about AIs, and then what I do is that.
But there will be no way. Might get only those
Triangles.
Triangles.
It's an arbitrary sequence given to you. You don't have any control. If I just give you a sequence of triangles,
Okay.
so that's a problem. So you can't assume some structure of this.
Okay, that is my input is
I'm
completely
sure
arbitrary.
you will give a polysize. Arbitrary sequence given in.
Okay, that is the sequence is completely arbitrary.
Yeah. I'm sure you can give a polysize certificate, but not the argument here. That's all.
Yeah, first of all, I'll have to show that if I get some other arbitrary pieces, then also I would not be able to clear. I should get sequences exactly in this manner. Okay. This I've actually showed in this thing, that you have to have this kind of sequences only. If you have any other kind of sequence, then you can't fill this board at all. It's a very restricted kind of a board in that way.
No, that's not clear. That is for that given initial configuration. See, for the reduction, given the partition problem, you had the freedom to design your initial board and the sequence, which you did. So the initial board, you set it up in such a way that it's only this kind of sequences that will fill it, right? And it suffices to consider triangles only. Right? Now, to show that the problem is an NP, you have to consider any instance of the Tetris problem. That means you are given some arbitrary initial board
Okay, so
and a sequence.
yeah,
You
so-
don't have control over it.
So what I polynomial size certificate would be the rotation and
Correct.
exposition itself.
Yeah.
The one for which I constructed, using which I constructed the initial board. So the polynomial size certificate is simply I get a piece, I give it the rotation and the exposition I'm placing it. I just take it there and drop.
Yeah, so it's an NP machine, it can guess these.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
not-
So it's the certificate is polynomial size.
You guys are more careful.
So the problem is in NP and we showed that it is NPR, so it's NP complete. At least this instance. The problem that if the initial configuration is actually empty and you have some arbitrary sequence of pieces, it's still an open problem. Because the problem we constructed is very restricted.
What about online version?
Online version,
Eric Demin doesn't say.
no, he considers only this. Okay, Eric Demin published this paper, but he had he did not restrict it so much as in this paper. He considered rotation models and other translations. So this model is simply 2 cross 1. You can't rotate. Okay. You just have to keep going down and down.